Welcome to Bridging Gaps, the business podcast sharing the challenges and stories of fellow business owners.
Hello and welcome back to Bridging Gaps, the business podcast. I'm Deborah Levitt, and this week I'm in conversation with Tina Boden. Tina is the tiny troubleshooter, the B&B keeper, and the co-founder of Microbiz Matters with Tony Robinson, OBE. She's also involved in charities and is just somebody who really strongly believes in both micro businesses and being practical and realistic about what you need to do to make a living, but also understanding the realities of being in business for yourself, the loneliness and the need and the importance to make sure that we look after ourselves and we look after our mental health, our physical health, and just to really concentrate on all of the different aspects so that we can make the most of our lives overall, not just our business lives. Please join me now in welcoming Tina to the show. Hi, Tina. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Deborah. How are you?
I am very well, thank you very much, and really glad that we've managed to connect again.
Yeah, it's taken some doing, hasn't it? But when you're busy and you've got busy lives, that's sometimes what happens.
Yes, sometimes it just takes a bit of juggling, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So, Tina, could you start off just by telling me a little bit about the different businesses that you're involved in at the moment?
As you have already said, I co-founded Microbiz Matters and Microbiz Matters Day with Tony Robinson, which of course we had those amazing podcasts that you did for us at the beginning of the year. I am also the tiny troubleshooters. So I work with micro businesses, those that employ 0 to 9, to help them problem solve. And that problem can be anything, because when you run a micro business, you're very much involved in all aspects of that business. So it could be strategy, it could be development, it could be flourishing, it could be exiting the business, it could be sales, it could be social media, administration, helping yourself to create efficiencies. And through that, I'm really, really interested in the well-being of the business and the business owner and how one impacts on the other. So if you're not great, then the business often suffers. And if the business isn't great, you often suffer. So we look at all of that side of things. And from that, I started to manage relief management for a B&B. And that was to give the lady that owned it time out, so for her well-being. And I did that for a few years. I took on another client doing the same thing. So originally, going right back to my roots, my parents always had pubs and hotels, and I went back into that industry. And I realised at the beginning of last year, 2018, when I was 50, that there was a niche. I had a look, and I created the B&B Keeper, which I go in and do relief management for B&Bs, guest houses, small hotels. And I also help them, if necessarily, as a virtual assistant and do some social media and marketing. So in 2018, I looked around and decided there was a bit of a gap in the market for somebody to go in and do relief management for B&Bs, guest house owners, small hotel owners, when they go away on holiday, if they have an emergency or health emergency. And what I did was I founded the B&B Keeper. So I do relief management, I do some virtual assistance, and I help with social media and marketing.
So you're actually covering quite a few different things, but some of it is actually the relief management is going in and covering for them while they're away, but the other stuff is supporting them on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, and doing that virtually. So I am fully booked as the B&B Keeper for 2019, which is brilliant. It was a new business, and here I am. I've got 7 lovely clients, most of them in the north of England, but 1 or 2 more in the Midlands. And yeah, that's what I do. So right back to my roots. Did I imagine I would go back into hospitality in my 50s? No. But here I am, just it's sometimes all about having to find a way to earn an income. And it doesn't matter that you have multiple businesses as a business owner. And sometimes that's the answer. You have to look at how you can generate income in a different way. It's one of the things that Tony and I talk about a lot. So here I am, Tina Boden, the tiny troubleshooter, the B&B keeper and co-founder of Microbiz Matters Day.
Not to mention all of the other things happening in your life, including being the new mother of Archie, the dog.
Yeah. So we have, a sort of auntie of Archie, I think. My nephew is living with us and we've adopted a dog.
Well, you know I'm a big fan of dogs. So
I do. Bless him. He keeps hearing his name mentioned. He's laid on the floor and his ears keep pricking up. He's like looking around to say,
why are they talking about me?
The chocolate Labrador, and he's lovely. But he's yeah. So and I am chair of the Andrew McGowan Legacy Fund, a constituted branch of the RNLI that was set up in memory of my eldest son's friend Andrew. And I'm just getting involved with a new charity called Ground Up Foundation as a trustee, which is all about mental health awareness, and that's a coffee shop project. And Andrew Critchett, the founder of that, has had his own mental health problems, and he's been in the food industry and decided he wanted to do something that allowed people that were struggling with their mental health to come into coffee shops, whether that's pop-up or permanent. And that will look at funding mental health first aiders in the hospitality, coffee shop, bar industry. That's quite exciting.
That is really exciting, because there's a lot of talk and awareness now around the importance of our mental health and the need for us to look after ourselves and, hopefully to limit the number of problems we have. But of course, there's a lot of us who are already in that situation where life has been tough and the mental health issues are there. So how will that work in terms of mental health first aiders?
So they're trained to recognise that the people have, need maybe support around the mental health. And a lot of people find, like coffee shops, let's meet and chat over a coffee, or let's go for a beer, or that type of thing. So Andrew felt that it was a good place to start. And so watch this space on that one, because that's in the very early stages. And Andrew and I met through Twitter, through social media. And I've followed and supported the amazing work that he does for a long time. And mental health in the micro business owners I don't think is given enough attention. And especially when we look at the number of people that work remotely, that freelancers. And that's really the reason that I've got involved with that. It comes back to my interest in your business and the well-being of the business and the business owner and how one impacts on the other. I mean, if your business isn't doing great and you haven't got income, it has a serious effect on your health and well-being. If you're not doing great, then that can have an impact on the cash flow of your business and attracting customers. I mean, there's all sorts of quotes out there, aren't there? If you Instagram or any form of social media is every day, you're bombarded with the different quotes. But the one quote that I do love is your vibe attracts your tribe. And I do believe it does, because I think if you're feeling quite down and low, that you find yourself in a negative place and attracting, you're not attracting the positive that you need, but that's because you're not in a great place yourself. So.
And it's hard to, if you're around somebody who is in a negative place and is feeling down, I think that it's quite difficult to continuously be trying to lift them up, which is why those people who are feeling more positive maybe do end up stepping away, and it kind of spirals, doesn't it? Because you started off feeling a bit down, but you can't get yourself out of it. The people who are positive are probably not even consciously, but are pulling away as well, and the people who are negative are feeding you more.
Yeah, and it's a hard one, but I think it's important that we all support each other when we're running micro businesses, because, as I say, so many people do work remotely, and there are lots of opportunities for co-working space and and some great co-working spaces, and to work out of coffee shops and cafes and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's, it's certainly something that is important in micro business, is your mental health and making sure that you look after your mental health. The FSB did a report about it, it'd be a couple of years ago now. Very interesting report about the mental health of small business owners. That's not the ones that are 5'3" like me. That's like micro business and small business.
Yeah, see, I'm only 5'1", so I'd be a micro business.
We're a small business owner. I'm definitely a micro business owner. I haven't reached 5'5".
But it is true. One of I think the most valuable things that I did, which wasn't planned, it wasn't something that I set out to do, but I have managed to establish several, probably 2 or 3 groups of people that are business buddies and are there to support, so that that, if you are having a rubbish day or whatever, I know, depending on what it is, which group I might talk to. And we chat all of the time, generally on, Messenger or something like that. And it makes a big difference because they're there supporting you. So rather than feeling alone in those times, you feel you've got somebody there to help, and it makes a big difference.
It does, and often they've been through the same thing as you as well at some stage. I mean, I've been in business for 30 years, apart from a very brief employed period. It'll never happen again. I'm unemployable. And I just think that you can quite often, especially if you're starting out in business, you quite often think it's only happening to you. Oh gosh, I haven't got the customers. Oh gosh, the cash flow is terrible. Oh God, oh, well, am I doing this right? Oh, this has gone wrong. But actually it's not only happening to you. There's 5.2 million micro business owners in the UK. The likelihood is that it's happening to about 1 million of them at any one time. You've just got to find somebody to talk to and chat to and make sure. And people that you get along with, that have an empathy and understanding, that have the same goals and visions and ambitions as you. And when I say that, I don't mean exactly the same goals, but they're maybe driven by the same things. If your business is, if you're driving yourself in your business because you want a better life, or you want, it's about the work-life balance, then find somebody that's also doing that. Whereas if you're surrounding yourself with people who are driven by the financial gain, and you don't want that financial gain, then you that's not the right person to be talking to.
Yeah, because their focus is going to be on things that drive them forward, that don't resonate with you, that are just, you're thinking, well, that's, I'm not so, I'm concerned about the money at one level, but I'm not concerned about the money of being super wealthy or whatever their driver might be. And, but that's one of the key reasons for this podcast itself, is that I wanted people to hear from a whole range of business owners who are at different stages and who are there openly saying that actually, do you know what, it wasn't easy and that it was tough, and it still is tough because of exactly that feeling of being the only person for whom the world feels pretty rubbish at any point in time. And as you said, if there's, 1 million business owners feeling like that, knowing that other people go through that, I think just makes a huge difference and makes you feel far less alone, and far more accepting of the fact that this is actually normal.
Yeah, and I do think that's really important. I mean, Lloyds Bank have got a campaign at the moment about talking about money, haven't they? The M word, and yes, which I think is a really good campaign, because I think, again, it's like, we're British, stiff up a little, well, let's crack on and we can do this. And it's a little bit like, somebody says to you, how are you doing with your business? And there is this fine line between your vibe attracting your tribe and that positive vibe, and the fact that you're actually being honest. So, because if you're not honest with yourself about the things that are happening, that's when you start to actually get this, you become very down with everything. It's like social media, the sort of social media versus real life, and it's so many young people are affected by social media because they see these influences or not influences. And I mean, I was talking to a lady last week who, she was saying to me, oh gosh, I'm doing this, and all my friends are going out with their kids in the holidays, and I'm working. And I'm like, yeah, but are they all going out? Are they really? Because what you're seeing is people posting pictures on Facebook and saying, oh, we did this today and we did that today. Well, what's going on behind the scenes? Let's be real. That's one of the things that Tony and I talk about all the time, is the realness. It's important to be real, and as micro business owners, it's important to be real. You've got to be real yourself with your personality, because the reality of your personality in your micro business is what draws your customers to you in many cases. When we talk about having a unique selling point, you are often your unique selling point of your business, because it's your personality that people are drawn to. And if people aren't drawn to it because they don't like you as a person or your personality, that's fine. It's like Marmite. You love it or hate it. Don't take it personally. Just move on, But to be fair, I'm 51. It probably took me to being 40 to have the confidence to say, bollocks to it. I don't care that you don't like me or that you don't agree with me. I'm not changing my views because you've said, oh no, that's not the right way to go about it, or I'm not changing my business brand. Yes, you can slightly tweak your business because your customers are saying, well, actually, if you did this, or you could offer that, and they're saying that all the time, then that's absolutely fine. And, if you think it'll help your business, then that's fine. But if there's just one-off person gives you a bad review because they're not happy because of this one thing. I mean, as the B&B keeper in the hospitality industry, in, TripAdvisor, Booking.com, all these things, reviews, they're killers. But you can't take them personally. It's just so... somebody had put a review on about some information I'd given them when I was looking after a B&B, and I'd said, we're busy this weekend, I cook everything fresh, there may be a little bit of a wait if everybody comes to breakfast at the same time. She'd put on the review, and I was told on arrival that service would be slow. And down marked us for service. That's not what I said.
And it's that balance as well, isn't it? How some people will react. So some people, like this person, obviously took it as just a complete negative, irrespective of whether it was slow or not. And others would have been going, okay, well, actually, that's really useful to know. Mm-hmm. So, we're aware that things might be a bit slower because it's all freshly cooked.
Yeah.
But
you want to go and have breakfast that's been pre-cooked an hour before and is being kept warm on a hot plate, other alternatives are available.
That's it.
As this is going to go out as a podcast, I'm not about to name them.
We'll keep those between us.
Yeah,
but that, as you say, it's not taking it personally, and it's quite hard. And I think it's also hard if you've come from a background of being employed and you're starting your own business. I think it is quite hard to be yourself, because the thing that you typically learn in most employment situations, in my experience anyway, is almost not to be yourself. That you need to present this, this corporate appearance and this corporate towing the line and all of that sort of thing. So you're very used to going, okay, well, this is the way it needs to be if I'm going to be successful as a business. And trying to step back from that to be yourself is quite difficult, especially when it's very personal to what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think when you're in a micro freelancer, there's only you business, and it is your personality that it's dependent on. It is important that you're not corporate. You're not that corporate person, and actually you are who you are. I mean, the lovely Penny Power has written a book called Business is Personal, and it is personal, especially running a micro business. And I deliver a workshop called Is Self-Employment Right for You? And I talk about how the business becomes part of your family, and it's there at the dinner table when you least want it to be, and comes on holiday with you, and it gets in the way when it's like a small child at times. It's like, oh gosh. And business is personal, but you can't take it personally in a lot of cases when people are sort of not being particularly pleasant to you, because in this day and age, the keyboard warriors and all those people are very quick to criticize, and a bad word can be spread much quicker than it could in the olden days 30 years ago when I first started out in business. And I mean, I suppose I'm quite different in that apart from the dog is absolutely snoring his head off. I apologise now, everybody, in this podcast for a snoring dog. And the trouble is, if I go and move anywhere, the snoring dog will follow me and start snoring again.
It's quite okay. I have learned that dogs and cats find these interviews incredibly boring, and they just go to sleep.
Oh, somebody said dog. He's working.
Oops, sorry.
So, where were we? We were talking about business being personal and actually not taking it personally, and the bad word being spread much quicker than it was before 30 odd years ago. And I think that is it has its pluses and its minuses, does the evolving of technology and the digital age. But I think that's where people have got to look much wider than that and choose the right person to work with if they're looking for somebody to work with them in a service industry. But even in the retail business, you go in, there's nothing worse, is there? Whether you walk into a market and there's market stalls, or you're at a craft fair, those that are starting out test trading, or they're at a little fair in their community and they've taken a stall because they're going to see if their product sells, and they're sat behind their stall on their phone. They're not stood up, they're not engaging, they're not saying hello to the people that are walking past. In retail, you can't do that. It's got to be about the smile on your face. You're never fully dressed without a smile is one of the presentations I do, and it's so true. It's just, I mean, running a micro business is so hard. You're jack of all trades and master of most of them. And you've got to worry about finding the work. You've got to worry about getting the money in. You've got to worry about being nice to people all the time. You can't put a post on that says, sod you, I've just had enough today, and this is what I think about. Well, you can, and then look at what happens when that happens. And it's a bit like myself, all the different things that I'm involved with, and I'm constantly aware of my own existence when I'm doing something or speaking to somebody, because I'm thinking to myself, right, okay, I've got to present this and say this in a certain way because, this is what I do. People know me well in my local town, in my region, even, in the micro business community. You can't afford to write anything negative. You can't be sharing certain things on social media. Don't share pictures of yourself completely plastered. Not that I ever am, of course, but don't say pictures of yourself completely plastered or that you're going to regret. And anything, never, ever, ever post anything that you are going to not be able to say, yeah, that was fine. I did that for a reason. And that was the reason that I put that on there.
Yeah, it's being aware, isn't it? And taking conscious action rather than just doing something and thinking about it afterwards. And that can be hard if the emotions are running really high. But it's true, even with emails and that. I used to get a colleague of mine, it was really annoying actually. So I would get an email from somebody which would have, pressed a button and but I was with it enough to know that actually I didn't necessarily want to send it. So I would send it to a colleague and he would and say, can you just look at this and, is it actually okay? And I would say 9 times out of 10, he would come out back to me and say, why don't you just call them? And I'd be, oh, yeah, damn, you're right. That is a better option. But it was just taking that heat out of it, though. I'd managed to vent. I'd managed to get some distance, and he'd helped me see the perspective of there's a better way of dealing with this rather than going with my initial, reaction.
And in certain businesses, the majority of the work is done via email these days, and I think that's quite sad because you lose that contact. What's written in an email can be read very differently to how it will be delivered if you're in the phone. So to give you an example, I get quite a lot of inquiries for the B&B Keeper through my website that I created. So people will send me a message saying, seen your services, this is what I want. And within the hour, if I can, certainly within the half a day, I've picked up the phone, even if they haven't given me the phone number, because they'll have given me the business, or or I'll send them an email and say, can you let me have your phone number? And I call them. And they're like, oh, right. Oh, yeah. Hi. Because the thing is, they want me to look after their business. They're asking me to go in and look after their business. And so I need to start building that relationship with them, and I need to chat to them, because when you're chatting, you know, it's like you're doing podcasting with you, Deborah. You have all this plan, don't you, of what you're going to ask the questions of the person that you're interviewing, and then suddenly that person says something interesting, hopefully like I have done, maybe the odd interesting thing today, and you go off on a different strand. You find yourself going off in a completely different direction. And that telephone call does that. You might end up finding out a little bit of something that you can use in a future conversation. You know, it's their birthday tomorrow, or, you know, the dog's just been to the vets because it's not been very well, or, you know, the B&B has been nominated for an award and they get to find out in a fall. All of those things that you can then use later on that you don't get in the email. And I had this conversation with Neil, my husband. We were talking about the difference, because he's ended up in sales in my brother and sister-in-law's business. And, you know, he's not used to sending emails. He's 53. He's been in the construction industry and done that side of things. He can do it, but he much prefers talking to people. And he said, and actually I find that if I talk to them, we get on a lot. And I said, yeah, and that's what we're losing, I think, in the digital age. We're losing that ability to communicate. And I think more and more in the corporate world as well. Yes, back it up with an email once you've had that conversation. Have that conversation, put down the important points, send it over, absolutely fine. But we need to start talking to each other more. And to me, that helps with the mental health and well-being. That helps with the actual general communication building. It helps with connectivity, because you end up having a conversation about something or somebody, and you suddenly realise that they know so and so, and you know, and all of that is just far better. And if, like me, you like talking, which I do,
I hadn't noticed, Tina.
No, I didn't think you would. No. And if, like me, you like talking, I just think it's a far better way of building a relationship. And you build a relationship far better with people in that way, and whether they're customers or who they are.
You definitely build a much stronger connection. And I know that with one of my recent clients, what has actually been really nice is I took her through from the idea, you know, she wanted a podcast, and we went through, you know, so she now has a podcast, but through the process and through the, you know, talking to her, and we were talking on Zoom most of the time, we really got to know one another and got to know, you know, a lot about her and what she's like. And one of the things that she said in the testimonial was that she now feels that I'm a friend, and I feel the same way. And through that process, whereas if we'd just been doing a fairly, I guess, almost mechanical or completely automated process, that wouldn't have built up. I would have just been gathering facts, and I wouldn't have learned any of the other things about her and been able to suggest how we approach things in the same way as through building that relationship.
No, you wouldn't. And I think for me, that's like the social media stuff. And if you've got social media for your business, that's back to chatting to people in social media and not sending the, you know, these businesses that send out constant sales stuff or anything else. This has got to be about chatting. You've got to have a chat. You've got to interact. You've got to, I mean, Andrew, that I was telling you about from Ground Up Foundation, I'd not actually met him until 6 weeks ago, but I chatted to him on Twitter, and you know, when I met him, we just gave each other a hug, and it was like we'd known each other for such a long time. But it is that communicating in a chatty way, not in a formal email way, where you're actually and to me, that's how you help to build your crowd, because without a crowd in business, So building your crowd is so important, because actually it's about the people that buy from you, the people that support you, and the people that promote you. And that's how you build your crowd. And again, it's around your personality. It's about sharing stories of stuff you do and how people get to know you and all of that stuff about your business, about your achievements, about the different things you do. But don't do it in a salesy way. Do it in a, this is what we're doing, this is what we've done, this is a picture of something that we've recently done. And I get that some businesses unfortunately can't share that. I mean, I've got quite a lot of clients, tiny troubleshooter clients, who don't want people to know that I'm working with them. They want me to give them the support and they want to go off and do it, and that's absolutely fine. Whereas with the B&B keeper business, it's different, because the B&B owners want people to know that I'm the person that's there. They've put me in charge to look after their place while they're away. Sometimes look after their animals and their kids as well. I mean, it's like,
You're really stepping in there.
That comes back to building a relationship and people knowing that they can trust you and believe in you, and looking after somebody's business is like looking after their children anyway. So,
well, it is, because it is such a personal thing, and it's so important to them and to their livelihood, and to them being able to take that break as well. That it's well, as you said, it's part of the family. So, Tina, I want to go, I guess, back a little ways, because we've talked about where you are now. We've talked about a lot of the different things that you do and the well-being and all of that. But when you, as you said, you've been in business for 30 years. You had a brief period of employment. Through that period of time over this, how did you get to a stage where the micro biz and that focus on wanting to support micro businesses, on wanting to really help people to make sure that they're looking after their well-being as much as anything, did that just evolve, or were there any specific things that drove that?
I blame Tony, but then I blame him for quite a few things.
Easy to blame.
I can blame him. We need to highlight that in this podcast. No, he'll send me an email and say, I apologise for getting you involved in this. So it's all your fault. Now, when I was 3 years old, at nursery school, my mum and dad went along to a parents' afternoon or whatever, and my nursery school teacher, the lady that owned the nursery school, said to my parents, if the army come knocking at your door, just be careful what Tina volunteers for, because she always volunteers to do something. And so my whole life I have done that to lesser and greater degrees, and I've probably got far worse as I've got older and said to me, oh, I'll help you with that, or I'll do that. But the micro business, in my employed period, I met Tony at an event. It was promoting enterprise, and I didn't find it very enterprising. And I got chatting to Tony, and we got talking about different stuff. And we decided, he's been involved with advising government and civil servants for a lot of years, as long as I've been in business. But then he's older than me. Tony Robinson, OBE, OAP. And so we got chatting. We both live in Scarborough, and we decided we wanted to do something that supported micro business owners, and we were going to co-fund it. It was just going to be basic support, and that's how that happened and evolved. And we did the social media and we built the following, and then so many others were doing it as well. So that's why we now network of networks. But having run my own businesses, and mum and dad ran their own business, and my brother and sister-in-law run their own business. My in-laws had their business that my brother-in-law now runs. Our eldest son, he runs his own business. Our youngest son and eldest son have just gone into business together. So I have an absolute, right through me is the self-employment in my blood, the knowledge and the understanding. And you read all these different things. And I think especially around the startup Britain stage and the, growth business, and it's all about business, and it got me more and more cross that people were talking about growing all the time. And then Tony and I started to talk about that, and we just said, right, well, we need to do something for micro business owners and say it's fine that you only want to be this big, or you're only earning this amount of money, and this is the support that you got. So it's a little bit back to the volunteering, giving back, doing whatever, paying it forward, all of the stuff that I believe in, that as I've got older I believe in more and more. And that for me is part of my reward of what I'm doing. So being in a position to be able to give back and to want to give back and to make a difference, and that's what Tony and I did. We've invested an awful lot of time and money in it. We've not, we've had some sponsorship, some support, but along the way I've had to work damn hard in my other businesses to make sure it happens as Tony. And yeah, so that's why that happened. So maybe I always say that I'd love to go back and find my nursery school teacher, although I think she's probably dead now. But I'd love to say to her, my God, you couldn't be more right, because over the recent years I've been trustee of Ellie's Fund Brain Tumour Trust and the Andrew McGowan Legacy Fund and various things. Probably the last 3 or 4 years I've got a little bit better at saying no, but I'm still not very good at it. So please don't ask me to do anything, because I'm...
So just while we're here, I thought I'd ask you to volunteer.
And then it gets to the stage where you volunteer yourself, and then you're in a type of industry like the tiny troubleshooter, where it's advisory, like yourself. You're advising people around podcasts, and they're like, "Oh, can I just meet you for a coffee? And can we just talk about?" I'm like, "No, actually, you can't. And you need to pay me to do that." And then it was about the beginning of last year, it was about the same time, I think I was 50, and all these things started to be like, right, this is it, I've had enough of this, and this is what I'm going to do, and hormonal woman coming through. And that is another thing, actually, I think, that we don't give enough discussion to in this world we live in, and that is actually women, hormones. I mean, we talk about equality, we talk about the feminism stuff and all of that, but I think there has to be, and I think over the last 10 years I've become much more aware of myself, my understanding of me. I know that if I don't eat regularly, I get hangry. I now look and say, right, well, that's probably because of, I'm at this stage in my life, I'm this age, this is the process I'm going through, but this is what I want out of life now. I don't want the same stuff that I did when I was 25 years old. Couldn't give a monkey's whether I've got X, Y, and Z. I work to be able to go away. I want to go away with my family. The one thing that I did learn, Ellie, who died of a brain tumour, I didn't ever get to meet her, but she taught me so much through the stuff that I did afterwards and working with all the other young people that were being affected. And I realised what was important, and making memories is the most important thing you could do. And that's what it's all about. It's like this weekend, we've had a house full of family, and yeah, so it's been quite hard work, and I've been catering for between 8 and 16 most of the time, but that's fine. So because actually you've made all those memories, there has been the odd family argument, but that's fine, because again, do you remember when we all got together at Easter and you said this and I said that, and then after another glass of wine we all laughed about it? But that's a memory, and that's, for me, that's what's important. The one thing I've loved about Microbiz Matters and the events we've done and the people we've met is sort of the memories we've made, but the people that we've met along the way, and the friendships that have been created, and the people that we've managed to connect together, and all of those amazing things. And I look now and think, do you know what, if we hadn't have done this, that, my life wouldn't be, I wouldn't have as much fulfillment in my life as I do now. The boys are starting out their new sportswear and fitness training business, Watch This Space, and they I was looking at my networks, and I'm like, right, well, let's share it with this person on Insta, or let's tag this person in on Twitter, or let's do whatever. And just because you've made those networks, and that's what's important in business. Make it, you never quite know in business who you're meeting or where they're going to. I think people become too driven about networking events where they're like, I didn't get any sales from this, or and it's like you were saying, Deborah, about a slow burn. It is some things can be a slow burn, and it is hard, and you do need to generate the income. And sometimes actually to generate the income, you've got to go off and do something completely different that's going to generate the income that's going to take the pressure off your business. That's fine. And it might just be going and, filling shelves at your local supermarket, because you've got to get the income to pay the bills. But don't look at it as though, oh my God, I've suddenly had to take this job because I'm filling shelves. Look at it as access to finance to help run your business.
Yeah, rather than getting a loan or something, you're actually going out and earning the money in just a different way. And it's there to support you in what you ultimately want to do. Because I know with the podcasting stuff, there is, I can't go to somebody and, so I can't come to you and say, Tina, if you don't start a podcast this month, this is going to happen. And, your world is going to fall to bits. Nobody will ever have heard of you, because it's something that somebody has to want to do, and the time has to be right for them. And I can talk to the benefits and all of that. But until they're ready, there's no point in me, really pushing. And I've got, sort of one person who bought on the day that I was introduced, and that was completely over Messenger. She knew she wanted to do it, was ready to do it, and just committed. Whereas other people who actually know me better and have had more engagement with me, taken 5 months, maybe longer. They knew they wanted to do a podcast, but weren't quite ready to make the commitment and the time to do it. So it's all about, as you say, filling in that I guess that gap until things start to turn the way that you want them to, while you're still trying to help them to move forward.
And the other thing is that, so to me, I think go out and get yourself a little part-time job, and that's not, and instead of taking a loan. So a loan puts you under more pressure, doesn't help your mental health. You've got to find the money to pay it back, even when your cash flow is not great. It's not getting you out there meeting different people and maybe giving you opportunities to network and spread the word about the business that you're starting. Whereas going out and getting a little part-time job in something that is going to put you maybe in the place where the people are that want to buy from you, whatever it is that you're selling, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, and you're having an opportunity to chat, and you're getting out of the house every day or every other day, and you're meeting new people, you're going to a different environment, all of that is so important for your business and you, because it's helping you with your positive mental attitude in a much different way. And I mean, Tony and I go on and on about bootstrap, don't borrow, and sometimes you have to borrow. I get that. I absolutely get that, because it's the quickest way to do it. I'm not saying that this is the solution to everybody's problems, but in the day and age where we have so many freelancers as part of the number of micro business owners that we've got, the percentage of freelancers are so high. I think we lose sight in the fact that it's okay to be doing, as I said to you before, having all these different businesses. And that's one of the things with me. I don't care if I had a business idea tomorrow and I could fit it in, and I was, I'm likely to buy the domain name, ring the wonderful Gaynor Carr at the Smart Station, who has been my designer extraordinaire for the last 9 years, and say, I've had this idea, and she'll go, oh my God, which is usually what my husband says as well. But I wouldn't think to myself, oh God, I've got these other businesses, I shouldn't have this one. Because actually, if I see a niche and it's going to generate me an income, and it's something I want to do that's going to sort of fulfill an interest that I've got. I mean, it's like the 6 criteria I have. It doesn't bring me if it doesn't bring me income, if it doesn't bring promotion, and it doesn't bring me happiness to bring me income or promotion, I won't do it. If it's working with an organisation that takes all my knowledge and experience and they use it as their own, they don't credit me in some way, whether written or financially, I will ever work with them again, and I will withdraw from what I'm doing with them immediately. If it's working with an organisation that doesn't have the end user at heart, the client that they're working for, if they're just doing it to get income through ticking boxes, I won't work with them, and I won't work with tossers.
Which is very clear, and it's very important to, again, keep yourself, I guess, true to yourself and true to what you believe in, and back to being yourself again. Those are the things which are important to you. Those are the boundaries that you've drawn, and then sticking to them.
And I think we've got to do that when we're in business. And I think especially as micro business owners, we've got to do that. And and I keep coming back to the same thing. It is important that we support each other, but it's also important that we are supported and supporting people that have the same empathy, understanding, ethos, ethics, all of those things that we need that have similar type of people. We don't get involved with tossers, but your definition of a tosser and my definition of a tosser is something completely different. Somebody else's is as well, and that's fine, because the world is a massive place, and it's very, thanks to digitalization, we can work with people all over the world now, and that is amazing. And there are some huge pluses to digital evolving, and there are some minuses, but again, we've got to look at all these different things, because we've got to make sure that we ourselves are the best we can be. Our well-being and the well-being of our business is the best that we can be, and we've got to be able to do the things that we need to do to make that happen. And then if we find that what we're doing in business, it isn't working, don't flog a dead horse, basically. We've got to then say, right, is this right? It's not worked. It's not failure. Giving up. I mean, I had a kids' clothes and shoe shop, and oh my God, it drained me financially, mentally. And thank goodness my parents, who gave me a loan and that I'll be paying back till doomsday. But I should have given it up long before, but I was at a stage in my life where I was too proud to do it. I didn't want to say, oh, I've failed at this, but I wouldn't have failed. It would have been, I'd have learned from it. It wouldn't have stopped me starting another business. I'd have just picked myself up and, got on with it again.
And that could be the hard part, is to keep it in perspective, that that particular thing hasn't worked. So what am I going to do now? And as you say, taking the learnings from it. Tina, what I'd like to do, as you've said, you do lots of volunteering, you're involved in lots of different things, you've got multiple businesses. How do you look after your own well-being and make sure that you're not sort of exploding as you're being pulled in multiple directions, or do you?
I scream a lot. No, I'm only People say to me, how on earth do you manage to do all that stuff? But it's about balance. And yes, don't get me wrong, I have my moments, Neil, Tom and Charlie, and even Maisie, my granddaughter, will say to you, oh gosh, Nanny's just a little bit cross, or oh God, Mum's on one again, or Neil's like, and yeah, there are moments where I realise I've taken on too much at times. And we come back to the stress again of being a woman of a certain age, and actually, your own body is giving you enough stress and self. But it is about balance, and it's in balancing things out. And, being the B&B keeper, though I might be on call 24/7, because, you've got the guests to look after, and there's people to check in, and you're staying on the premises, and all these people that say to me, oh, it must be lovely to run a B&B. I am desperate to get them into a B&B to run it for a month at a time. If they've had no experience of it, they need a month running a B&B before some would run to the hills, because they just realise, it's not about cooking a few bits of bacon and putting some puffed up cushions on a bed and pruning your roses round your door. It's actually hard work. But through that, I still have some downtime where I do my other stuff. And, you know, as chair of the Andrew McGowan Legacy Fund, when I was needed to be there hands-on at the beginning, I could do more. And then I do more at a distance now because, again, technology is a great thing and you can do things remotely. And it is about understanding, and it's about looking at what I help others with as the tiny troubleshooter. So having specific times of the day. You know, I get up in the morning, I do some social media. I actually often get out of bed if I'm at home and I leave my onesie on because I'm doing my home stuff. You know, when you're working at home, it's about differentiating between home and work. And as you know, Deborah, that can be quite hard. So, and then I go into my office and I do the work, and it's just about focusing. And Tom, my eldest son, has a plumbing, heating and tiling business, and I do his admin and finance and social media for him. But it's about scheduling it in and looking at it. And then Neil and I went to Andorra skiing the week before last and just had time, just the two of us together. And you just have to learn that those bits are important. Those bits are really, really important. And then it's using the time that you have got to do the things that you do, which for me is spending time with my family, really, and having them around and doing stuff and, yeah, all of that type of thing. Sat here listening to a snorri dog.
But he's happy. That's the main thing.
He is.
So, Tina, before we wrap up, are there any, I guess, final maybe words of advice that you'd give to somebody either who's, you know, already started their business and is perhaps finding it challenging, or to somebody who's about to start?
Whether you're starting out or you're keeping going in business, you need to have a passion for what you are doing. And if the passion is in doubt, get out, is one of my tiny troubleshooter statements. If the passion isn't in that business before you've started, get out. If the passion isn't there when you're in it, get out. And that's not just waking up one morning and thinking, oh, I can't be bothered to do this today, or I don't have. That is the constant. You haven't got that fire in your belly, the passion for what you want to do. Because if you haven't got passion for it, nobody else will have. Surround yourself by people who have been there and done it. There are a plethora of business advisors out there, business coaches, business mentors. Some of them have never run a business in their life. Why would you? You know, as I said, I've just been skiing. Would you take skiing lessons from somebody that's never skied? No, of course you wouldn't. So don't take advice from somebody who's never run a business when you're starting out in business. And do not be afraid to take business advice as you go through that business as well. Every day is a day of learning. We all learn something new. I have people that mentor me informally, you know, without really knowing it, but they're people that I pick up a phone to if I want some support and I know I can have a conversation with them. They'll give me a snippet of advice that will be really helpful. So surround yourself with real people, have that passion, and talk about things. Don't keep it bottled up. Don't be afraid to say, this isn't going great. You know, have you had a similar experience? Remember that the two key things you need in business are customers and cash flow. And without those two things, you don't have a business. And if you do need to get out of that business, then look at a way that you can get out of it. And don't think to yourself that you've failed. Look at it as something that you've done, that you've achieved, but it didn't work quite as you thought it was going to. And look at it as a learning curve.
That is great, Tina. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for joining me today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Deborah.
If you're interested in learning more about podcasting, visit bridgeroadconsultants.com/events, where you'll find all of the different courses and events that I run.
You've been listening to Deborah Levitt on Bridging Gaps, the business podcast.